Welcome to Inside Aesthetics, the world's leading podcast for injectors and aesthetic businesses. I'm Dr. Jake Sloan, an aesthetic doctor with over 16 years experience in facial aesthetics.
And I'm David Siegel, an entrepreneur and business mentor with over 20 years of experience in our industry. Our podcasts are aimed at industry professionals, and any information or advice given is general in nature. You should consult with a healthcare provider before undergoing any treatment.
You can also subscribe to us on Patreon for on-demand content for injectable and business education.
Good morning. How are you?
I am very well, my friend. We're back in the studio.
We're back.
We're caffeinated and ready to go.
And we are here for Business of Injecting, episode number 16.
Chapter 16, actually.
Chapter 16.
Get it right.
Sorry, chapter 16. And we're joined by Dani and Hayley from Luum Aesthetics, all the way in Western Australia. Disclaimer up front, they are consulting clients of mine. So this is not the reason they've come on the podcast. It's just a happy coincidence that they're running great business. They've only been going for a fairly short period of time when you look at things, on a large scale. And I just thought it'd be great to have them on, talk about their journey, the secrets to their success, and just unpack that a little bit. So we'll introduce our guests in a moment. But before we do to that, what is happening with Patreon? Any news? What's happening in Jakeland?
Well, we're recording this pre-going to Thailand, but by the time this is out, we would have come back from Thailand. So hopefully you had a great time.
Yes, we'll be nice and tanned. Well, the next episode, we'll be blending into the background.
Yeah, so thank you to Alma Lasers for taking us, and we'll be doing a podcast with them soon.
Yes.
Where we'll publish about our experience and what the Alma Academy is all about.
Yeah, we're going to do a little bit of on-the-road reporting. We'll be taking some portable mics and capturing a bit of content from various interesting people over there, KOLs, and hopefully we'll make a few connections as well to bring some interesting episodes with people we would not have ordinarily have met.
It would be really good, yeah. And Patreon news and IA offers. I gather we've got a new IA offer to tell people about.
We do. We have just signed a partnership with a law firm down in Melbourne who specialise in health. They're called Health Law Partners. They were actually referred to us by our lovely Patreon, Dr. Simone Dorian, who used them and was raving madly about them. So we've reached out and we have done a deal with them. And something that's a little bit different about their practice is they are virtual lawyers. They're a team of lawyers, but they don't have a premises, which means that their hourly billable rate is a lot less than what you would pay for a lawyer ordinarily. So they have an offer on at the moment with us. So if you go to our offers page and you want to click on the link to their website, if you just use the code IALegal01, you will get a 10% discount off their billable hours. And they're also doing some health audits on people's businesses. So when I'm talking to consulting clients, one of the things that we cover is looking at your contracts, whether they be staffing contracts, shareholders agreements, leases, anything like that you might need a little bit of a health check on. It's always a good idea to get it done by someone that knows what they're talking about, particularly that has experience in this space.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So if you're a listener and an injector owning clinic and you think, shit, my consent forms need looking at or anything like that, that would be a good company to call.
Absolutely. Patreon news for me, I'm actually recording a Patreon with Jubilant Julie tomorrow on business. So we've been talking, obviously we've had her on the podcast before. She's an absolute sensation overseas, does lots of amazing content. So if you guys haven't heard of Jubilant Julie, if you've been living under a rock, check her out. She's got a massive Instagram following and a huge Patreon subscription as well. And I'm going on to talk about business. So pretty excited about that.
Brilliant.
You got any news? No. You got nothing?
I got nothing for you. No,
nothing.
Just been too busy injecting. Clinic's actually very busy at the moment. I don't know about what the girls' experience is. We can talk about what the market's like in Western Australia, but it feels like it's picked up again.
Yeah. It ebbs and flows, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's introduce your special mentee guests.
Yeah, so I'm very happy to introduce Hayley Phillips and Dani Gardner, all the way from Western Australia. So for all of those that are not in Australia and wondering where's Perth, where's Western Australia, it's basically
the western part of Australia.
It's the opposite. It's a 6-hour flight. I don't think people realise. A lot of our overseas friends that come over here don't realise how big Australia is geographically. Yeah. So we can actually fly to New Zealand faster than we can get to Western Australia. It's a 6-hour flight. I'm actually going there at the end of September.
Is it 6? I thought it was 4.5.
Depends on which way you're going.
Right.
So I think you guys can probably tell us. I think it's quicker coming back all the way there because of the tailwinds, but either way, it's not around the corner.
Quick. Yeah, yeah. When we have to come over for a conference, we have to take a packed lunch.
Wow.
It takes quite a while.
Fantastic. So maybe we'll start with Dani, just to make this easier to sort of speak to both of you. Tell us about your background, first of all. When did you start injecting? When did you meet Hayley? Just, tell the listeners about you.
I'm Dani. I am a registered nurse. I've been injecting for 8 years now. Hayley and I met when we were both baby nurses. We were both working within a GP clinic that also had sort of a cosmetic side to it. And so since then, I've finished my postgraduate, or not postgraduate, the graduate certificate in cosmetic nursing. And I've also done a bit of training for Hugel as well in a clinical setting, which has been great. Yeah, so I'm a registered nurse, do cosmetic nursing, love it, very passionate about it, and that's me.
Awesome. And you, Hayley? Tell us the Hayley Phillips story.
Sure. So I graduated nursing in 2014 and I went into the hospital working in medical surgical, and the hospital I was working at closed. And so I sort of fell into GP nursing. The GP had a cosmetic arm that was sort of just starting up. And so I had never really thought about doing cosmetics, but I sort of tinkered in it and I just fell in love with it, and it progressed from there. And Dani and I both then went to a second clinic after that one, after a few years. And that's when we did a postgraduate certificate in cosmetic nursing. Then I sort of kept my toe in GP nursing just to keep my sort of general nursing skills up the whole time. And I've been injecting for about 9 years now. I also work for MERS as a trainer, and I'm on the board for CNA. And we opened Luum about 14 months ago. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about Luum. What was the impetus for starting a business, and why did you select each other as business partners? I mean, it's one thing to be friends and get on as colleagues working in someone else's business, but take us through the whole process of working out this is what you wanted to do, how you were going to do it, like what the inspiration was. Dani, I'll go to you first, and then Hayley, you can give us your perspective.
I think, we've both always been very passionate about cosmetics and, the aesthetic space. We sort of both went our separate ways after the second clinic that we were working in, and worked at different clinics for sort of 5.5 years, but we stayed really good friends the whole time. I guess every time we caught up, it was sort of all we spoke about was cosmetics.
Yeah.
So I think we both just have a really, shared passion for the industry. And we knew that we wanted to build our own dreams so that long term we could possibly have, more financial freedom, more freedom of time, that kind of thing. And we had a shared values, I guess. We wanted to create like a welcoming, inclusive space where people it doesn't feel too stark or anything to enter. Everyone feels comfortable when they come in. So I think, those were kind of our reasons for starting.
Yeah.
And how about you, Hayley? Is that true? Or do you have a different spin to that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think we are both quite driven individuals, and I was quite happy at my place of employment, but I sort of felt I had reached the threshold of where my career could take me being employed by someone. So it was just the next progressive step, I guess, to see where we could push ourselves and see what else we could achieve.
Excellent.
Brilliant. I actually think it's really sensible to sort of get your runs on the board, do separate things as individual injectors, and maybe even make mistakes, but work under someone else, and then sort of combine forces.
Yeah, someone else can pay for your mistakes. So, what do you think about people that just go out and open their own business as soon as they finish their nursing degree, particularly nurses, because they don't get the same level of hospital exposure that doctors do for the most part. Is that correct, Jake?
Yeah. I mean,
generally,
doctors basically have to do 2 years whether you like it or not. And
yeah, right.
I don't know anyone who went to medical school to become an injector.
Yeah.
Whereas nurses do sometimes.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask both of you, Dani, what do you think about that? I mean, it's not here to sort of cast judgment on someone or say something's bad. I'm just curious from your perspective, because you've come from that background where you did spend many years gaining your skills and experience, making mistakes, having a support team around you. Do you think that's the best way to do it? And what do you think about people that sort of jump straight in, maybe with a little bit, I wouldn't use the word ignorant, but maybe they don't really know what they don't know yet?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have the support as you're learning your skills. I think as I've grown as an injector, you've probably become even more wary of, I guess, things that can go wrong and that kind of thing. So I think having the support and working underneath someone who has more experience to begin with is definitely worthwhile and really valuable, to your long-term growth and development as an injector. I think it's a little bit scary going straight out and starting your own clinic, I guess, yes, as soon as you've done a course in cosmetic nursing, because there's so many things that you just don't know yet.
Yeah. And I mean, just to be clear and not offend anyone, I'm not saying that if you do that, you're a bad person or that you're doing the wrong thing. I guess the point is that you might as well give yourself every chance of success that you can. And I think that sometimes when you're new to something, you don't know what you don't know yet. Like I'm sure, Hayley, there was a point where you started aesthetics where you thought, I've got this, how hard is it? And then it isn't until you've actually done it for a period of time that you start to realize how much you don't know, or perhaps you have a greater appreciation for the things that can go wrong, or realize that maybe your anatomy knowledge isn't where it needs to be. Did you have that moment, that sort of moment of awakening or consciousness where you go, holy shit, this is pretty full on. I really don't know much yet. I'm kind of, it sort of gets revealed, like the map gets revealed and you go, oh God, I've got this far to go. And, there's so much to this.
Yeah, I think the first couple of years you start injecting, you think, I can do everything. I've got this whole world under control. And then you go on this rapid decline, like, actually, this is really complex. This is complicated. Things can go wrong. And then you creep back up the hill as you gain skills and as you learn from those mistakes. And being surrounded by other health practitioners who have also experienced that really does help you grow. And so I think if you were isolated in a clinic on your own, just coming out of a course, it would be really difficult to go on that growth, that journey of growth. Also, I think from a business perspective, I think a big key to Dani and I's success is that clinically we already had great skill set and we felt really confident in our ability to treat our patients. So when we opened the clinic, we didn't have to focus on that. We could use all our energy to focus on learning the business side of things.
Yeah. That's a great point. What do you think about that, Jake?
Yeah, 100%. And sort of goes back to what I said. I thought it was a really sensible decision to not open straight away.
Yeah.
We're all still learning. Been doing this for 16, nearly 17 years. I'm still learning every day. So if I had to run my own business, there'd have to be a compromise. I'd then have to not learn as much about injecting.
Yeah.
So the fact that you've partnered together also then divides your time to learn even more.
Yeah. Well, it's like learning a trade, isn't it? I don't want to diminish it, but I mean, whether you're learning law or you're learning to be a master craftsman or a tradesman, you learn those skills. Obviously, you go to, university or some kind of education center where you learn the theory of how you apply certain skills and what everything is. But then essentially it's a process of an apprenticeship where you're actually with someone that has the experience, that's showing you're learning on the job with, a pair of steady hands behind you that can guide you through that. So I see this as exactly the same kind of endeavor.
Yeah, no, totally. Did either of you identify something in your colleague that you thought this would be good for business? Like, did you, talk about in your planning stages that, you're going to be good at, finance and you're going to be good at managing staff? Did you sort of divide those roles already, or did it just come about once the doors opened?
We definitely did to a degree at the start, because we'd worked together previously, we knew that we had different strengths and weaknesses. So we actually spent a long time developing a business plan before we opened, probably about 12 months. And we wrote down sort of the areas we felt like we were really strong at and we could manage from the get-go, and then the areas that we felt like we lacked knowledge in. And we engaged sort of professionals from those areas before we even opened. So like an accountant, a bookkeeper, a social media manager. So the day that we hit the ground running, we were already surrounded by these people sort of who were strong in the areas that we were weak. But yeah, Dani definitely has a more financial mindset. She's really great with sort of numbers. I love policies and procedures, and I wrote up like a 100-page policies and procedures document. That's my jam. So yeah, we have different things that we're great at. And clinically, we also see like complex patient cases from different perspectives. So it's amazing. We always bounce off each other like, hey, I've got this person with this really difficult, I'm just going to throw something random, nasolabial fold. What do you think about this? And we can look at it from different angles. So that works really well also.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so you guys work together in a couple of places. You've decided to do your own business. Okay, so you've gone and recruited your support team, and that's something I talk about a lot as well, is making sure you've got that support network around you. You know, as I said, a good lawyer, a good accountant, and so on. So, what was the first step to?
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah,
to that?
Go, Dani. Sure.
I think another important thing that we did from the get-go as well is we employed a reception team or an admin team as well, so that we could focus solely in the room on the clients. So we had someone answering emails, making bookings, that kind of thing. So we didn't have to get home at night time and, you know, answer all these emails or get back to people's inquiries. I think that really helped us to get off the ground running quite quickly as well.
Yeah.
Can I ask, how long did it take to train up your admin team? Because, you know, there are so many moving parts in a running clinic. You've got clinical issues, all the protocols and booking systems, and, you know, it just doesn't really stop. So how long did it take for you to sort of feel confident that I can just leave them to it and I can just concentrate on injecting in the business?
Our admin had both previously worked in different cosmetic clinics, so they kind of knew a lot of the treatments from the back end as well.
Yeah.
So that helped a lot. It was just learning Timely, our CRM system, that kind of thing. But yeah, otherwise it ran pretty well, pretty smoothly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so where did the money come from, and how did you budget how much this is going to cost? Because all this stuff isn't cheap, right? You're starting a new business. You've never done your own business before. Like, this is a pretty ballsy move, right? To sort of open up your own clinical practice together. You don't know whether it's going to be successful or not. You know, you're spending money on admin teams and training, and you've got your support team all set up. Then you've got to like find a spot. You've got to like build it, pay for the fit out. So where did all the money come from, and how did you sort of budget for all of this? I'll go to you, Hayley, because yeah, go on.
We actually opened a joint savings account, I want to say, around COVID.
Right.
And we committed to both putting the same amount of money in each week, and it was great because it held each other accountable because we have a shopping addiction. So it was
Online
good.
shopping.
Like, we had to save because I was putting the money in, and so was Dani. So we went into it having about $80,000 to $100,000 cash that we had saved up.
Yep.
And we also had like a private investor who put in a little bit of money, who we paid back already, and we've also paid ourselves the money back that we put into the business. But yeah, we set up the savings account and we said, we think we want to open a clinic. Let's save for the next 2 years. Let's keep thinking about it. Let's start putting a bit of a business plan together. If at the end of the 2 years we feel like we're not 100% committed to it, well, we've just got this giant savings fund. Let's split it halfway and we've got a great Europe trip or whatever.
Did you have a number in mind that you needed to save to sort of be a viable clinic where you weren't sort of immediately running into debt? What did your accountant say?
We just started saving, and then once we had a big fund, well, we thought it was a big enough fund, we kind of thought, okay, it's time to take the risk, time to take the leap. We kept finding excuses as to why we would wait another year or do this or do that. And eventually we just thought we found the perfect space and took the leap.
So just to sort of help me with the numbers, so did you buy a property? Or are you renting a property? Did you have to refurb? What were your major costs?
Yeah, we're leasing a property in West Perth, so like in the Perth CBD. We chose that location because we've been injecting for a long time. We have patients that literally drive from an hour each way north and south of Perth to see us. So being in the middle just made geographical sense. We wanted to create sort of like a warm, welcoming space. Obviously, it has to be clinical, but we didn't want it to feel, no offense to like a shopping centre vibe, but we didn't want it to feel something like that. We wanted a more boutique space. So we have like a heritage house. It's got 4 treatment rooms, but it was completely bare. So the fit out was a huge cost initially. We had to get all cabinets in and plumbing to the rooms and air conditioning and things like that. So a large portion of our budget went to that. And then obviously the rest of the money that we had went to doing like our first opening order for our stock. But we were already we were posting that we were going to open a couple of weeks before we did. So the day that we opened, we were already booked up back to back for the first week or two. So immediately we had cash flow coming in so that we could buy more stock. So we were very fortunate in that aspect. And I think that comes back to us having that sort of 8 years experience. Although we obviously had to delete all before and afters off our social media from previous clinics just for intellectual property. We weren't able to approach any of our patients, and which was fine. That's respectful to our previous employees. As we know, once patients establish a relationship with a practitioner, sometimes they'll walk over broken glass to find you. So people just found us anyway. So, yeah.
Right.
What do you think of the early planning phases? Is that a typical story, or have they planned better than most?
They planned better than most. I mean, the fact that they have 8 years experience and deep client databases to draw from, even though you weren't proactively trying to approach people, they found you, as you said, you've obviously done something right. You've built long, powerful relationships with these patients, and the fact that they wanted to support you and were willing to drive a long way says a lot about the way you must make your patients feel and the relationships you have and getting good clinical outcomes. And I guess that probably takes a lot of the pressure off, because that's kind of the point that most people start to get really nervous is they want to start a business, they look at how much it's going to cost, and then the pressure comes, where are these patients going to come from? And I think that's where potentially a lot of business owners potentially run into problems, because when you're desperate to make things work financially, that can start to impact the decisions that you make clinically around how much product you're going to stick in someone's face, saying yes to patients that you know, your alarm bells are going off in the back of your head saying, well, I really shouldn't do this. This is not the right patient. I'm not comfortable with that treatment. What do you think about that, Dani?
Yeah, I think we also did a lot more planning in the background with another business coach that we were using. Yep. She was amazing. She really helped us to kind of find the courage to step out on our own as well. So we sat down and did budgets with her. We made sure that we could pay ourselves, a small wage so that we could pay our mortgage, that kind of thing, as well as putting in all of our outgoings, making sure that we could figure out what our break even was. And then from there, once we figured that out, we did sort of our costs of goods sold to figure out where we were going to position ourselves, how much we needed to charge for the treatments to be making money as well. So yeah, we had a good savings fund, but we still did do the maths in the background as well.
And we factored in our experience and the experience we were going to give to our client to help position ourselves as well in the market. And we just have tried to really hold steadfast on pricing, no matter what's going on with the market at the moment. And obviously, I think all clinics have felt the pinch, and it has been ebbing and flowing. But just really holding steadfast on the ethos of our clinic and the service we provide and the experience we bring to the table. And that's why we've priced ourselves at that point. So it has been working.
Can you expand upon what you mean by that boutique service? What does differentiate you from, let's say, a chain clinic or maybe a more sort of budget option? There's nothing wrong with that, but how do you deliberately create that? And what does your extra customer service look like? That's to Hayley.
Yeah, so when we set the clinic up, and it was actually very fortunate that this was our perspective on it, it's very skin focused. So whilst Dani and I inject back-to-back every day, we immediately employed a skin therapist, and we purchased a couple of devices that we knew would be applicable to, I guess, a general demographic of patients that we see. And every time someone comes in for a consultation, we have quite lengthy consultations, and we really go through skincare, we really go through skin treatments, and we go through injectables. And we spend a lot of time educating. I think our patients walk out really, really well informed. And so I think that's where the different experience comes from. And they feel really empowered, and they feel part of their journey, and they know why they're doing things. And we give them options to reach their goals, that they do feel like they can pick a pathway that also aligns with them.
Yeah. Dani, how did you find the right skin therapist? Because this is a question that I get asked a lot from some of my clients who want to potentially expand or start offering skin treatments, and it's really hard to find a good one. I know when I used to run my clinics, the amount of good ones that I encountered that stayed for a long period of time and were trustworthy and had great client relationships and could actually, sell without pushing, but, being confident enough to make the right recommendations and follow through and sort of build that relationship. A lot of them left during COVID because they were the first people that were affected. Like all these hands-on people lost, had to step down from their roles straight away because of the virus. And so a lot of people ended up leaving. There was a big skill drainage out of the industry at that time. So how did you find this right person? How did you know they were right for your business?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to find someone with enough experience that is happy to use sort of multimodality treatments to reach their clinical endpoint or kind of reach their clients' goals. We were really lucky. We were approached by a colleague of mine that I've previously worked with. She applied for the job and I knew that, she's an amazing dermal therapist. She's been doing lasers, medical grade skin treatments for a long time. And she has a really good working relationship with her clients as well. The clients love her. They trust her. So, it's really tough to find someone with the experience that is able to recommend different treatments and multimodality at the same time within the same appointment so that she's using all of the devices. Yeah, it's a really tough one.
Yeah, it is. Here's a question for you, Hayley. What percentage of your business comes through skin, roughly? And then when you're answering that question, the other factor to think about is it's not just about how much revenue comes in from skin, it's how many patients come through the skin pathway that then cross over to inject, because some people just look at things like from that single lens, which is how much money is skin treatments making me, but it's a little bit more complicated than that because they sort of feed each other. So some people that might not have originally come to you for inject come in for a peel or a micro or a device treatment that then go, oh, you know what, I really like this place. Maybe I'll think about injectables or maybe I'll get my injectables here.
I think probably about 30%, which has been increasing since we opened. It definitely didn't start at that sort of percentage, but we have sort of built a bit of a name for ourselves now for skin. But I would say probably like 80% of our inject clients also do the skin.
That's amazing.
But we're probably getting 30% of new people coming in through the skin avenue purely for that. And then often that is evolving into them doing some sort of injectable treatment also.
Particularly with the change in the TGA laws, I guess we're pushing skin a lot more online with paid social ads and things like that. So it is bringing in more new clients that then come over to inject sometimes.
And as injectors, what specifically do you talk about or educate your patients on about skin, and how have you learnt to do that? Were you doing that as injectors in your old clinic, or have you sort of reskilled more recently to sort of build on that knowledge?
Previously, the clinic I was in was quite skin heavy as well. So they offered a lot of laser treatments, BBL, IPL, that kind of thing as well. So I think I've already worked really closely with dermal therapists in the past to build that journey, because I think there's no point in having a frozen forehead if you've got a whole bunch of pigmentation or really crepey dry skin. So I think it works together really well.
If I think about us as baby injectors though, like let's rewind 8 years, we weren't skin focused. We were lips and tox. We didn't really talk about skin. We didn't think about skin. I think that's evolved as I think the whole industry has evolved, and we've all realized as health professionals, and I think this has been touched on the podcast before, if the canvas isn't good, our results can't be good.
Yeah.
And so that's just come with time and with, I guess, seeing our patients come back in it and realizing that we're not reaching the clinical endpoints that we wanted to because their skin wasn't in good quality. But 8 years ago, we were like, what's a laser?
Well, I think our patients are also getting clever as well, and they're much more empowered with what they see in social media. But there is still a big cohort, at least that I see, where they just can't see it, or they don't value it enough, or they're not convinced that Botox is worse than having good skin. So how do you prove it to your patients, if I can put it that way? That's to Hayley.
A lot of it is like language. We use a lot of emotive language, and we do upskilling with our staff, and it's about education. We give samples of skincare. So if they're coming for their Botox and we're really trying to explain about sort of medical grade skincare and what it can achieve, if they're really hesitant, I will give them a small sample. I'm going to say, use this for the next 2 weeks. When I see you for your 2-week follow-up, you will genuinely see the difference. We've taken those clinical photos. They can already see the hydration quality of their skin is improving. So I think things like that. Sometimes I think it's getting a little bit more challenging for us as practitioners because there is flooding of information online, like with TikTok and stuff like that, which we're fighting against a little bit. But, we see people with impaired skin barrier all the time in clinic because they've used some kind of crazy retinol that they saw on TikTok and now their skin's just absolutely, ruined.
They look like a burns victim, yeah.
Yeah. So we do try to explain them that, we are using evidence-based knowledge and we are prescribing this based on what you need specifically as a person and what we're looking at.
Yeah.
Not what an influencer's using on TikTok. That's probably not appropriate. I also like to put it in perspective that often the things they're buying are maybe from Mecca or Sephora, and they're probably priced similarly to some of the medical grade skincare that we stock anyways. And then they start to think, oh, okay, well, maybe I can start to incorporate some of that.
That is actually very common. I have that conversation a lot. I'm using Drunk Elephant. I'm going to Mecca. I'm going to Sephora. I'm going to J'adore.
Drunk Elephant.
Yeah, it's a brand.
Right, okay.
And, they're marketed to because it sounds cool and that's what the influencers are talking about. But when you actually ask them, what does it do? What's the active? How often are you using it? They don't really know. So skin is very confusing, not just for injectors, but mainly patients. And I think somehow we need a better way of, as injectors, of teaching them. And so I don't know if you use any tools like a Visia or just standard photos, like to show them. Often people don't realize until you actually show them in a photo. So do you do any sort of photos or any other techniques to show them the quality of the skin to Dani?
Just standard photos. We did look at getting a Visia or something like that, but I just found they are quite bulky and I don't know if I would run out of my room to grab one to stop and do that during the consultation.
Yeah.
So I think often just education, talking to them about their skin and saying, look, I really think you should try something like this, and sort of starting them on at least one product while they're there.
Yeah. This isn't a plug, but it is a plug. We've got an IA offer with clinical imaging and it's an amazing system, one for the photos, but I've just realized you can actually add on some filters. So now I can show my patients pigmentation, redness, and a few other parameters through the photography system. So you don't need a separate Visia. So it's actually really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, yeah.
So
How do people find that? How do people find that offer?
Bottom of the podcast description, go to IA offers, then go to global offers. Sorry to interrupt your podcast, guys. Just a little bit of news about David and IA Business. So, David, you've been doing business mentoring and coaching for around 18 months now with many of our Patreons, as well as a few outside people and internationally. And you've done a bit of a rejig of your services.
I have. Well, I've worked out that ad hoc sessions are great, which I'm happy to continue to do with random things that crop up in people's businesses from time to time. But really, I've worked out that there are common themes or common problems that people have within their practice. And I've based a 3-month or a 6-month course that essentially skills people up on all those areas that they tend to struggle with most commonly. So things like finances, operational issues, HR disasters, negotiating leases, negotiating with suppliers.
And so how do you do this? Do you meet people? You do it through Zoom? Is it groups, one-on-one?
I do one-on-one via Zoom. If people want to do in person, I have done in-person sessions before, but generally I'm talking to people all over the country or all over the world, so it's not always convenient for us to meet in person. So yeah, they're all done via Zoom.
Fantastic. And if that interests you, obviously there's a link at the bottom of the podcast. You can get all the information. It will take you to our website, a bit more information about what David does, pricing, and how to book. And if you are one of our Patreons on our Patreon tier, you save 10%. Enjoy the rest of your podcast, guys.
So, Hayley, how did you decide which devices to buy first? Because that's a question that, again, comes up a lot because people want to do skin, they want to do more than pills and micros or needling, and there's so many devices out there. And there's so many great ones. We've got some great companies in our industry, and they're all good.
None of them are cheap.
So how did you make that decision where you wanted to start with?
That was at the early stages of our business planning, what our patient demographic was. And I think I have a little bit of a younger patient demographic, but I think on a whole, between me and Dani, we probably see women, Caucasian women aged between like mid-30s to sort of like mid-50s. And a lot of them have sun damage. A lot of them have broken capillaries, and that was sort of a main concern. So immediately we knew that picking a device would help manage those skin conditions would be the most universal way to treat as many people as we could. So that's why we picked a BBL.
Yep.
We actually bought a secondhand one from a clinic in Perth because we also didn't want to invest a giant chunk in a brand new one and then find that actually that wasn't the best option for us. So we bought a secondhand one, which has been an absolute workhorse of the clinic. It gets used, all day, every day, and it works fabulous. From then on, we had meetings with our dermal therapists to discuss gaps in areas they felt like we weren't reaching the clinical endpoints they wanted to, and that was sort of lighter pigmentation. So we ended up getting a Q switch 1064 laser, and we also bought a RF skin needling, a Silfoam device.
Right.
And so towards the end of this year, we also plan to sort of have another catch-up meeting with our skin therapist, and then again review all that data and have a look, and then make a plan next year for another device that we will add.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not uncommon for people to buy devices and they just sit there, or they don't do the numbers that the sales rep told them that they were going to do. Like, you'll just see these if you buy this device, look at this forecast, you're going to be a millionaire in 12 months. So how did you make sure that you were going to be utilizing that piece of equipment and it just wasn't going to sit there collecting dust? Was this a focus? So you sat down and met with your therapist team? Did you have budgets for it? And how did that sort of become such a pivotal part of your business?
We looked at the price of the device,
Yep.
and then we worked that into the COGS. So we worked that into the hourly break even of the clinic. So to see if we could actually afford it, and sort of what targets we would have it having to reach to sort of even pay it off, to make sure that it was something that wasn't going to put us under duress. So that's also how it helped us sort of navigate a device, because, there can be anywhere from like a $100,000 laser to a $200,000 laser. So we really wanted to make sure before we purchased it that it was something that was even achievable. But we do sort of have targets. We don't have KPIs for our staff. We don't want staff to be pushy, but we do talk about targets that we sort of have to reach to obviously make sure these devices are worth having in the clinic. And our dermal therapists are really passionate. They want to get more devices because they love it. And we're like, yep, we can get a second device once we've reached this sort of target of paying off this device. So
yeah.
I had a question about secondhand devices. Now, I hear, I'm not going to mention any companies, that through various WhatsApp groups that people encounter problems sometimes. So you buy X brand of laser and you get it secondhand. I don't know where you sort of how that was arranged, but sometimes the company gets very unhappy because they're like, well, hold on, you didn't come through us and you didn't pay us a license fee, and they got very upset. So did you encounter any of that? You can be honest. Oh, you did?
Yes.
Yeah, we got stung with that. We did not know that was a thing.
Okay, tell us what happened.
Yeah. We had our BBL for about a year. We had it serviced, and then the rep came along and said, you actually have to pay a recertification fee. So I think that's something that people need to be aware of, and they need to talk about from the manufacturer if they're thinking about buying a secondhand device. So it was a good learning curve for us. And the recertification fee is steep. So do your research.
So, Legal Seagull, what is a recertification fee? What does it mean?
That's a really good question. I haven't been able to get a straight answer. I mean, I've heard the sales pitch as to what it is. So essentially, you purchase a secondhand device. The company needs to, I guess, go through it and make sure that it's putting out the frequency or the power that they're saying that it does. So basically, it gets the tick of approval to, I guess, pass some sort of quality control. But I've seen situations where people, I'm not going to mention the company, but I'm sure there's more than one that do it, where this stuff isn't really disclosed up front to people even buying new devices sometimes. Wasn't in some of the sales contracts I looked at, didn't mention a recertification fee, and someone goes to sell it and all of a sudden that'll be $50,000 for your recertification fee. So I don't know the legalities around if you can or can't do that, whether the ACCC would find that interesting. I really don't know, but it's something that you definitely should ask when you're buying a new device is go through the fine print. Make sure you understand what your consumable costs are going to be, what a spare part's going to cost if something goes wrong once you reach that or, go past that warranty period. do you want to explore what extended warranties look like? And then, this might be unpopular to say, but like, do you then look at like third-party repairers who can look after these devices as well? Because there are great repairers out there that don't come directly from the manufacturer. So if you're not worried about a warranty, are there other places you can go to do it in a more cost-effective way? But you want to make sure, and it's not just about having a verbal conversation, because people sometimes have selective memories. You want to make sure that anything that your rep tells you when it comes to important stuff like this, that it's in writing.
Yeah, for sure.
And check with your insurer. We actually checked with our insurer, and she said that the recertification fee wasn't necessary for us to be insured, provided that the staff had training and that training had sort of been certified, and that we had the device serviced, and we did engage a third party to do that. So yeah. So
did you end up paying the recert fee?
No, we're negotiating because we're considering actually upgrading our BBL anyway.
Right.
So that we may look to do a buyback. So we're just weighing up our options at the moment.
Yes, I mean, never bought a device. It's interesting. You're basically just continuing the use of a company's device, and you're going to need service and support anyway. So it just feels a bit exploitative. It doesn't feel necessary. But, those companies listening probably hate me for saying that. But, they're just using your product. It's good that someone is utilizing that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, it was interesting because a couple of my clients that bought said device from said company came to me, and they all said the same thing. I was never told this. It wasn't in their sales contract. I ended up getting in touch with this company and said, hey, this wasn't disclosed. Maybe you said it verbally or not. None of these people remember it, and it's not in your contract. And all of a sudden, the recertification fee dropped by 2/3.
But still insisted on it, even though there's no proof.
Yeah, but it came. They included a warranty in there and stuff like so. But it was $50,000, and it became a fraction of that just from saying, hey, what WTF?
Fair enough. Yeah. Whilst we're on the topic of devices, I don't know if you do have them, but have you ever explored body contouring or some of these other sort of more maybe less used devices? Is that a path that you've gone down or explored, or is it just too difficult and expensive? That's to Hayley.
We don't have
Dani
the space for that. Sorry. We don't have the space for that at the moment. I also think you need someone who's dedicated to just doing body treatments if you want to start bringing that in, because they do take a longer time. The client's there for a few hours generally, and there's usually a lot of consumable costs with them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the moment we're just focusing on the face.
Have you ever had any demand, or is it something you've spoken about seriously, or is it just probably not really on your radar? Because people ask us often, on our Patreon groups, etc. And I think it's a really hard sell. It's really got to be done as a specialized service with, like you said, a dedicated staff member or two. Otherwise, and it's got to be running all day, every day. Up
just for that, I think. But also in Perth, it's hard because there's a lot of smaller clinics that have opened up, kind of home clinics and that kind of thing, that do a lot of body treatments and body contouring. At a much cheaper price. So I just don't think it's competitive for us here.
Interesting. Is the home clinic thing quite a common thing? And are there any sort of legality issues with that, Hayley?
It's just the body contouring. There seems to be like this really big influx in, I think there's one person in Perth who's just like selling all these devices with like a mini course attached to it, right, essentially for people to do at-home body contouring. I'm not exactly sure what the device is. I just see a lot of people advertising it, but no one's doing sort of an injectable at-home clinic. It's just this body contouring.
At home. And I think, sorry.
I worked with it at my previous clinic, but I think sometimes you start to dilute what you're about if you start to introduce a lot of things.
Yeah.
So for us, obviously we still do a lot of neck and we do a lot of décolletage work, but that is really our sole focus. And to be honest, I think the pathway we're more looking to go into would be a little bit more regenerative. I did my Masters of Nurse Practitioner, so a little bit more focused on sort of like holistic women's health, like managing menopause and the skin as opposed to body. Yeah. So that.
Yeah, my at-home body contouring device is a padlock on my fridge. Yes. There's an interesting point you raised, Hayley, around the regenerative space, and it's something I've been screaming about for years and we've been talking about on the podcast, is from my perspective, our perspective, is sort of the next frontier. And it's sort of interesting that you mentioned that, especially when it comes to women's health and peri and postmenopausal women, looking at the implications of hormones and good health and sort of aging positively. So when are you going to start looking to introduce that to the clinic? Are you both going to be doing, or is this going to be your baby, Hayley?
So I started typing up a bit of a business plan and some forecasting the other day, and having a look at how we would integrate that. Again, I don't want to dilute what we do. I want to figure out how we can work it into the space and make sure that it flows really well, and that we're not trying to have our finger in 10 different pies and then we're not executing it properly. We have another nurse who started with us, and she's really interested in sort of functional health from a gut health perspective. So she's going to go do that AACDS course. If you get Dr. Izzy talking about that the other week. So she's got a really keen focus on managing like acne and stuff from a gut health perspective. So we just have to figure out how all this will tie in. I would love for us to sort of get a female GP in to work with me to do the women's health. So it's a long-term plan. We need physically more space. We only have 4 treatment rooms at the moment, and they're already maxed out. But yeah, it's definitely something that we really want to work towards. I think you just really need to work out how to execute it properly.
Yeah, shout out to Dr. Isabella Silla. That was episode 252, where we sort of talked about that whole convergence of aesthetic and regenerative and functional as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dani, what is the next stage of your growth trajectory? Hayley just mentioned that you're bursting at the seams, which is phenomenal because you've only been trading a couple of years, really.
Yeah.
What is the next stage? What does that look like?
Hopefully, eventually trying to buy a premises, something a bit bigger. We don't want to branch out into too many clinics or more clinics, essentially. We want to keep it all as one kind of hub or like a flagship store, so our clients can come there and we can have everything under the one roof. Looking for a new space maybe in the next year or so. Hopefully we can purchase a space and then go from there.
I don't know if I missed it. Is it just the 2 of you injecting, or do you have a third and fourth? How many injectors are there?
We've got 4 injectors altogether now.
Okay.
The other 2 nurses, they are almost like job share. They're both part-time, and they do a little bit of skin as well.
So how did you manage that onboarding / training process for your extra injectors? Because you guys knew each other, you kind of knew what you're all about and your skill sets, but when you take on a new injector, sometimes there's a dynamic shift, or they prefer different products, they've got a different focus, different energy. So how can you give maybe the listeners some tips on how you onboard new injector staff? It's sometimes tricky. David's done it a million times with varying success.
They both came with experience. So they'd both injected previously. We didn't have to train them up from scratch. Nurse Alex has over 10 years experience. She's worked for plastic surgeons in theatre as well previously. So with her, it was more, I guess, training on the skin side, how to recommend skin treatments, skincare, that kind of thing. But her injecting was amazing. And Nadira has been injecting for 2 years. She's actually been trained by Hayley at one of the GP clinics and sort of mentored by Hayley through at that clinic as well. So now she's doing part-time with us. But I guess we look at their notes as well, audit every now and then their notes, make sure that they're sort of dosing therapeutically and documenting appropriately. And then if there's any gaps in that, then we'll have a chat and kind of see if they need any other help or training from there.
Yeah, so that's a good point, actually. Sorry, carry on, Hayley.
We did actually, when we first opened, we did actually advertise a position for a nurse, and we conducted a whole lot of interviews. We didn't find anyone that we really gelled well with, or sort of aligned with our values and how we wanted our patients to feel and the experience we wanted them to have. So we just held off. We thought we'd rather just wait until we found the correct person. And we actually stumbled across Alex at a training. We met her there, and immediately we just sort of clicked with her. So that's how she sort of fell into place. And then, the GP clinic that I work at 1 day a week, they have like a little cosmetic arm attached to it. And I've been mentoring Nadira for the last 2 years. And so, I just sort of had put so much effort into mentoring her, and I felt so confident in her skills, and she wanted sort of expand and work in our clinic also. So she works a little bit in both. So I think it's important not to just rush into it. It's important to find the right person that fits with you and you fit with them, because, you know, they're really happy and we're really happy. And I think long term that means more job security and having long-term employees.
No, that's a really good decision. Bit of an injecting question really, but do you all like different products and different techniques? Because from a business perspective, it would make sense if you could to all, you know, buy from the same supplier and use the same tox, etc. But sometimes people have got their own preferences. So how have you negotiated that one?
We stock quite a few brands. So we do stock Allergan fillers and Botox, and then mainly our fillers we use Teoxane, just because we really like that product. But we have a few other bits and pieces that we really like as well. So it just depends on the client and what they're after, I guess, their skin quality as to what we choose. We both do a lot of collagen stimulators. My favourite's Sculptra. Hayley's is probably Radiesse. So I think there's a big focus on, the collagen stimulation with the inside as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you know, you've run clinics where there's sometimes stock that's not touched for 6 months, and then sometimes a new injector comes and they love it.
Yeah.
So
it's a challenge.
I guess keeping an eye on your stock levels, and if there's a new filler that's not quite shifting, you know, don't buy more. It's just logical stuff, but you need to actually keep an eye on this stuff, right?
Totally. And just even expiry dates as well. We had so much stock moving through the clinics that there were a couple of instances where new stock would just go on top and then the old stock would sit at the bottom, and then all of a sudden you go, oh my God, this stuff's expired, or it's expiring next week, and then you're trying to figure out how to get rid of it because you don't want to throw it in the bin. So inventory control is really important, and not only from just stuff expiring, but just when you've got multiple people in a space, sometimes you've got shared resources. It's really important that people are sort of doing stock counts at the beginning and end of the day, that you're sort of making sure that nothing's going missing or there's people that aren't wasting, because this stuff's super expensive and it can make a huge difference to the profitability of your business. If tox starts to go missing or a syringe disappears here or there, it doesn't take much before it really starts to have an impact on your bottom line. So as your business gets bigger, just a word of advice is make sure you have processes in place to really ensure that stuff is not disappearing, and have policies in place, because essentially the person that's in that room should have responsibility for the stock. So they should have something in place that if stuff goes missing, there's a protocol that's followed. Do you guys have that sort of thing set up, Hayley?
We have drug count every day for the room for that person. They are responsible for the count adding up at the end of the day. If it doesn't, they just have to come to us so we can try and troubleshoot that immediately, so that it doesn't kind of keep rolling on and then we end up sort of at the end of the year with huge stock sort of variations. We do have different brands of stock, and obviously financially from a business perspective, sometimes that's not the best because you can't negotiate the best prices. But I also think it's really important to be able to have as many tools in your toolbox so that you can deliver the best clinical outcome, because I think sometimes you do struggle to achieve that if you just have one portfolio.
Yeah, that's a reasonable point. You said that your first couple of weeks, you know, you guys were busy and sort of lucky that, you know, you sort of had that weight of customers initially. But how did you market moving forwards? Like, do you have any particular strategies? Has it all been organic and word of mouth? What have you tried, and maybe what's failed?
So about a week before we knew the clinic was opening, we thought, okay, we're going to have to market. We're opening next week. It was, a big, scary decision. So literally 7 days before, in the morning, we both posted on our own social media introducing Luum Aesthetics. Straight away, the following on Luum Aesthetics Instagram grew quite quickly, and we had bookings coming in, which was amazing. So there wasn't really a huge marketing plan when we first started, but since then we've realised we can't do everything. We don't have all of the time in the world to be doing our social media and things like that. So we have outsourced social media marketing. We've also outsourced like the website, that kind of thing. And then at the moment, we're actually paying for someone to look over all of our SEO on the back end of the website. And also we've just started up some social media ads, which are focused at skin or BBL, things that we're allowed to advertise on socials to bring in new clients now that we've got more staff that are able to take clients.
Yeah, a lot of people struggle, particularly handing over social media, because it's so personal and nuanced and tone of voice and all the rest of it. So walk us through how you got that working for you.
We actually had met Ali, who is our social media marketing, at a clinic we worked at 6 years ago. She's moved to Dubai now. But because we knew that she already knew the aesthetic field, we reached out to her, and she was luckily still sort of working within the space and was happy to take on a new client. Something else that we did was we partnered with a local jeweler. So when people come in to buy sort of a wedding or engagement ring, they get a complimentary voucher for our clinic for them to start their wedding prep, which has also been a way. So I think networking with other businesses to see if you can sort of benefit each other from that perspective can be a good option to bring in clients.
Yeah. Do you guys get some free jewelry out of that? Is it contra or is it cash?
That would be nice.
Posted.
Yeah. And I think in terms of keeping our voice with the social media and keeping it personalized to us, in the beginning, there was a lot of sort of back and forth emails setting it up and, using the languaging that we wanted to put out. And then we also have Dropbox and those kind of things set up so that we can take videos or photos in the clinic and upload it to there. She's got access to everything. We also have our marketing calendar sort of drawn up 12 months in advance now. So she's got access to that and she knows kind of what's coming up each month to send out in the newsletter and that kind of thing.
So what things do you think resonate? Obviously, we've got the new regulations in Australia that make it even more tricky for us. So what's your spin? What do you think your followers actually are interested in? Because a lot of clinics look similar now, that we're all talking about similar stuff, skin and regenerative medicine and, Rejuran, because that's the only thing that we can talk about. So what do you think's working and where do you see that sort of heading in the future for your clinic?
We've tried doing a few educational videos. Those have done really well. Sort of us drawing on our faces as to the main areas of aging but it is really hard to find what the clients actually want from us now. We are able to post lots of the skin before and afters, but yeah, we're still trying to figure that out, I guess.
Yeah. Do you do things like EDMs as well? So I guess you can communicate directly to people without being in the public sphere?
Like newsletters?
Yeah.
We do a monthly newsletter.
Yep.
Although we did look in the back end and it hardly gets opened.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay.
I actually looked at our EDM data this morning for our recent newsletter to our IA database. 51% opens. That's pretty damn good.
Is it? I don't know.
It's good. I mean, I think, what was your open rate for your one, Dani?
I think it was like 17%
there
or something
go.
like it. Just it was not huge, and we were quite shocked at it when we looked at that.
Yeah.
Look, I think it's worthwhile doing. If it doesn't take too much energy and someone's reading it, then it's just one more channel that you might as well use, because it doesn't tend to be too expensive depending on what channel you're using. I have to say MailChimp's got quite expensive, but it's a low hit rate for sure.
Yeah.
And I think if you're finding that the direct messaging on Instagram is better, then carry on. But I think what you're saying is, to our listeners listening, you actually have to look at this data and actually study it and work out what's working and what's not. Otherwise, you're just banging your head against the wall and you don't even know what's working. So, yeah, that's a good learning point.
Yeah. So Hayley, we've spoken about all the stuff that you guys have done right. Obviously, you've had amazing success. You've grown extremely quickly and you've got your heads screwed on and you work together well. What's gone wrong? Talk to us about some of the stuff ups, some of the mistakes you've made, things that you do differently if you had your time again.
I think something that we realised pretty quickly was Dani and I booked up back-to-back 4 to 5 days a week, 9 to 5. So it was really difficult to check in with our staff and make sure that they're trekking okay, see if they're having any issues or anything like that. And I think we quickly realised that we wanted them to be really supported and we were probably neglecting that a little bit. So we hired a practice manager. She does 3 days a week and that has been a godsend. So she really just helps support all the staff so that we can, because financially it just makes more sense for us to spend those hours seeing patients than it does doing that admin side of the business. So that was something that we learned we needed as soon as possible. We've had one major complaint since we opened, which is going to happen. And it was, it's always setting or something like that happens, but it was a really great learning curve for us as individuals and the whole clinic. We all sat down and we sort of troubleshooted why that happened, what were the loopholes that we needed to improve so that didn't happen again in the future. So we got our consent forms looked at by some lawyers, we updated our pre and post care, we updated sort of checklists that we were going to go through with the patient before we started their treatment. So they're probably the two things that I think that we've learnt from, but we've really grown from them, and that's really only improved us even more.
Yeah. I don't know if it was said at the start, how have you grown? Do you have a number? You don't have to tell us, how much money you made, but what percentage have you grown? And, just give us some basic figures, and that's to Dani.
Can David say that?
We only have 1 year to go off, so we can't really say how much we've grown, I guess.
A lot more than we thought.
Yeah. I mean, I had the opportunity to look at lots of different businesses here in Australia and abroad, and the rate of growth and expansion that you both have had is some of the best that I've seen of all the people that I've spoken to, even like looking at some of my own clinics over the years. So you guys have just, whether there's a portion of luck, serendipity, hard work, right place, right time. I'm sure like generally success is a combination of all those things, but you're not going to have the success or the luck unless you put yourself in a position to have that. So I think that it's just a testament to how well you guys work together, and you've obviously struck a great formula that's working for you. So the growth has been exponential. I can actually have a look at that and give people a percentage, but I don't know whether you want me to do that. But it's been phenomenal, really. And the fact that you guys have, just look at this. You've got 1 year worth of data, and you're already outgrown a 4-room clinic with multiple injectors and a skin therapist team with multiple devices, LEDs, skincare. And so I think that kind of probably says it all. Yeah.
Biggest mistake would have been if we were looking back to back ourselves more and taking on a bigger space to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, you say that, right? But hindsight's 2020. Yeah, you can say that now that you've been successful. And just to I was going to touch on this earlier, but this might be a good place to talk about it now, is a lot of the time when people are thinking about making these big decisions or taking risks, a really valuable exercise that someone taught me, and I try to impart this on people that I work with now, is work out what the worst case scenario is. Like if stuff doesn't go according to plan, you make no money, the business fails, you don't have any new clients for a period of time, you actually need to put in contingency plans for this. Like what if things go sideways, how am I still going to put food on the family for my table? If the business doesn't succeed and we need to close it down, what are my employment options like? So once you actually start working out what is a worst case scenario and have some contingency plans in place, then it starts to take away a lot of the fear, and you can start to take more calculated risks, because if things go wrong, you've got a plan in place, because it's very difficult to think clearly when things are going wrong, because you're stressed, there's emotion involved, there's pressure, your brain's not working properly. So it's always a good idea to think about, what am I going to do if 1, 2, and 3 or A, B, and C happen, and what's my plan for this? And then you can sort of move forward with confidence, because it does take a leap of faith a lot of the time. Business is not easy. If everyone was able to open up a successful business, everyone would be a millionaire. But the reality is they're not. And I think that's a really important step.
Yeah. I mean, this year, I don't know if it happened for you, but a lot of injectors were a bit worried. Certainly a quiet February, March, and then, like I said at the start, it sort of picked up again. But what was your experience? And did you have, for those quieter months, a bit of a contingency plan, or did you do anything different? Did you have to, change your hours? Like, what was your sort of experience this year? Because, you've grown really well, but you would have had some leaner periods as well.
Yeah, there was definitely a lull in sort of January and February, but I think we didn't panic because we knew from previous experience it generally is a bit quieter after Christmas. And then we thought, well, maybe next January we don't open up so quickly within that first week. We take a break for ourselves as well, because otherwise, we come back to work and we're kind of, not sitting around. We were still steady, but definitely quieter than usual. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good point.
We've both had training jobs with MERS and Hugel. So I think if we're a little bit quieter, we're able to just pick up a little bit of shifts with those. So that's a great fallback plan.
Side hustle. Well. Yeah. Love a side hustle. You guys are both really good at what you do. You've run a successful business. What was the reason for wanting a business coach? Because you guys are probably two of the most competent people that I've come across. What was the reasoning for that? You've obviously doing things right already.
To begin with, we had no idea about business, I guess. So we wanted someone to help us figure out the numbers and how we were going to make the clinic viable. Now I guess it's sort of more about getting advice as to how we can grow long term and what we need to put in place to be able to, grow into a bigger space, or whether we can afford to buy a property. What do you think, Hals?
Yeah, I also think it's really it's been useful with you, David, I guess having a market comparative on how well we're doing. You don't know because you're sitting in this clinic alone. You don't know what other people are experiencing. So I think just having that comparative to know that we are doing okay, and then just having really specific little things to troubleshoot with you has been really beneficial, because obviously you've been through the ringer, you've done it all, you've seen what works, what hasn't worked. And I think that is a really important part of any business, is going to someone that is successful when you do need advice, because they're going to be the best person to tell you.
Yeah. And I think as well, whether it's me or someone else, having someone who is not emotionally tied to your business, who has no skin in the game, because even with all the experience I had mentors, people that were in the industry, had more experience than me, but they weren't, the most important factor was they weren't in my business. And I think sometimes it's really easy, or sometimes it can be really difficult to make calculated clinical decisions without emotion, because there is an inherent bias. It is your baby, it is your money on the line, and sometimes I think your judgment can get clouded, and it's always good to have that sounding board, I think.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And the same goes for, injectors discussing complications or something where you're so emotionally invested in a problem that's happened under your roof. But to speak to your network who aren't emotional, they're just very black and white about a problem, I think it's a good sort of piece of advice for injectors.
Yeah.
David's favourite question, exit strategy. I mean, it's still early days. You've only just sort of opened, but at some point you're not going to want to work, and you're potentially going to grow to a bigger property one day and have a bigger team. So maybe not exit initially, but are you going to step back? Are you going to do other things in your life? Are you going to try and grow that passive income and sort of step away?
Yeah, I think it's probably too early to look at an exit strategy, but we also realize that I think it's very difficult to work 5 days a week as an injector seeing patients day in, day out, because the risk of burnout is really high.
Yeah.
I've just started to look at, I'm going to do a 9-day fortnight. So I'll drop one Wednesday a fortnight, which will be nice. And then I think, building our team so that they are covering a large percentage of the turnover as well, so that we can step back a little bit and eventually do 3 or 4 days a week.
How about you, Hayley? Are you going to take up golf or something?
Stepping back a little bit clinically from injecting patients back to back would be ideal. I agree with Dani. Burnout can happen, and you don't want to lose your passion for it. Your patients will pick up on that. So being able to step back to sort of 3 days a week, but I do actually genuinely love what I do. And I honestly can foresee myself doing it for a really long time. But we also are working on a small side business, which I won't get into now. We haven't fully worked out all the parameters of that, but that will be a passive income also. So that's also a bit of an exit strategy. That's
exciting. We'll get you back once that up and running and talk about that one.
We'll do the side hustle mini
series. Do you know
anything
about this?
I do.
Okay, well, we'll speak about it next year then.
So maybe just to sort of wrap things up, and I'll get some sort of closing thoughts from each of you. So I'll start with Dani. What advice would you give to injectors that are listening to this, whether they're solo injectors in other people's clinics, they have aspirations to start their own business, or potentially already in their business? What would you have to offer them?
Always charging your worth. So when you do your COGS, or when you're looking at what you're going to charge, you don't want to undersell yourself long term either, because you need to still be able to run a viable clinic. I think definitely having the support in regards to mentors, whether it's on the clinical side or on the business side, is really important as well. and having all your ducks in a row before you get started. So making sure that you've done all the maths on the back end.
If I could slip in a question, I actually meant to ask Hayley, COGS, cost of goods sold.
Yeah.
Can you just sort of elaborate on what that means to know your cost of goods? I mean, it sounds so obvious, but many people don't.
You asking me or Dan?
Yeah, well,
Hayley?
yeah, maybe I'll ask Hayley. Yeah, what cost of goods sold? How do you sort of sit down and strategize about it, and I guess know your position before you start setting your prices, etc.?
Well, first you got to work out how to use Excel.
Yeah, that was hard.
Basically, you have to put in the price that you buy things for, adding the consumable cost in. Then you have to work out what it costs to turn the lights on in your clinic. So what your insurance costs, what your admin staff costs, what the rent is, all of those things. And then you have to work out like what the percentage is based off that, and that will come up with your price. Sorry, that wasn't very helpful, but there's a formula for it, which you can add into your Excel spreadsheet, and you can just update as your business evolves and sort of your cost of running may change.
I can see a proud business mentor here who was proud of what you were saying there.
Yeah. That's correct. I mean, yeah, you've got, when you look at, so for anyone that's listening that wants to maybe go through the exercise, actually on our Patreon, I did a video on how to work this out. For anyone who is a patron that hasn't checked it out yet, check it out. If you're not a patron, become one and you can find out how to do this. So when you're looking at your sort of profit and loss, your expenses are split into two major categories. So one is your variable costs, also known as your cost of goods sold. So these are all the costs that it costs you to physically perform a treatment on a patient. So if we're talking about this industry, it would be your Botox, your needles, your syringes, your dressing packs, your gauze, chlorhexidine, anything that you physically need to do. And they're called variable costs because they vary. You don't incur that cost unless you're doing a treatment on a patient. So the first step is to work out what is your gross margin. And, your gross margin is important to keep an eye on because, as we know, we live in the inflation world now. So things are more expensive today than they were yesterday because our governments have printed lots of money and we've had COVID, which caused a lot of these issues. And so unless you're increasing your prices or finding ways to get things cheaper, your margin will erode over time. That's why it's really intelligent to look at your pricing on a fairly regular basis and increase it to make sure that your margins are maintained, because what can happen is you might be making the same amount of revenue, if not more revenue, but your profit or the amount of money that's coming out the bottom of the funnel can be decreasing over time because your margin is being eroded through pricing not being where it needs to be, and the cost of all the input costs are increasing.
Yeah.
So that's sort of your gross margin. And then you've got your fixed costs, and those fixed costs don't really change too much. They will change a little bit, but say your rent is, for example, is a fixed cost. Your rent's not really going to change whether you do 2 patients in a day or 10 patients in a day. So they're fairly static. They don't move too much. And so, as Hayley said, you need to make sure that you're staying across your numbers, working out what your margin is, maintaining it, looking at doing price reviews on a regular basis, because you don't want to be working harder for less money.
Yeah. And that's kind of where I was getting at with buying stock. Speak to your provider and buy in bulk, and speak to your injectors about what they don't like, and sort of really sit down maybe every 6 months and actually look at that, strategize.
Totally.
Perfect. Well, that's been a great chat, girls. It's really been nice to get to know you, and well done on your success. Have to come and visit one day. I've not been to Perth yet, but maybe when we do our roadshow around Australia one day, we'll come and visit, have a cup of coffee. I didn't ask you, why Luum? Luum. That's an interesting name. Why Luum?
Comes from illuminate within. So to illuminate your best self.
Perfect. I like it.
That's where it came from.
Do you have a logo, like a sort of to reflect that, or is it just the name Luum?
It's just the name Luum.
Cool. All right. Well, look forward to meet you guys soon. Thank you again for your time, and we'll see you at the next conference, I guess.
I might see you guys before that. I'm coming to Perth at the end of the month for Hugel, so if I've got time, I'll stop in and see your clinic and say hi.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks,
Our
guys.
Pleasure. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
For our latest news, follow us on Instagram at Inside Aesthetics Podcast. If you want to get in touch with myself or David, follow us on Instagram as well at Dr. Jake Sloan and David_Inside Aesthetics.
Join our Patreon for invaluable business and injectable education. Get access to our global community of like-minded professionals, live and interactive Zoom sessions, hints and tip videos, webinars, and more. Head over to www.insideaesthetics.com/Patreon for more information.